This conference will now be recorded.
Now, what is a servlet? Servlet is a component which lets you to serve a web client. That's all. That's called a servlet. So this servlet is simply cut into two parts. Servlet. This is nothing but a component that let you to serve a web client. Am I clear? So simple reason, a simple standard, like if you want to serve a web client, I'm telling the same thing in reverse as a rule. Now, what is the rule? Java has simply kept a rule. If you wanted to serve a web client, you must be a type of servlet, simple. So then you can serve. So to support that one, the servlet have a function called service. So this service function, which typically takes a HTTP kind of request, and it also have the capability to response HTTP kind of response in the and as a response. So here, this fellow is the one who facilitates our program to take a request and process it and give the response. This is what we have implemented previously. So let's learn what is this servlet component and then how he will be working and all. Well, so this Java X dot servlet is the package which contains all generic declaration, whereas Java X dot servlet dot HTTP, which is a sub package of Java X dot servlet, okay, specifies HTTP version of the same. So here we deal with HTML, yani ki HTTP version. So we 99.9% deal with HTTP, which is again a sub package of servlet. That means every interface that you learn over here is a sub interface of servlet. Am I clear? So so you have to learn both. And generic servlet, as I mean this generic declaration, as I told you, this one facilitates you to work with any protocol, जैसे कि TCP, जैसे कि Telnet, जैसे कि Gopher, blah blah blah, so many. But whereas this one, subpackage of servlets, basically enables you to work efficiently with the HTTP protocol. So as long as you are dealing with HTML kind of pages, it is always suggested you go with Java Extract Servlet or HTTP. What happens if I try to choose Java Extract Servlet? Nothing is going to happen. You will still be served because along with all the protocols, HTTP is also included over here. But there is a separate package they have given exclusively for HTTP. So that's why we get more facilities compared to this one when you are dealing with this one. Okay? Understood now? So here, now let's learn these packages one after another, what are the methods they have given. So the root interface of this servlets concept is Mr. Servlet. So here he comes with basically three important methods. There are so many other methods, 5-6 methods are there, but we deal with only three. The first method is public void init. Now he will take a parameter called servlet config cnf, and he throws servlet exception. Can somebody tell me what is this servlet config? Why do I supply this fellow to him? Now let's come to our server side architecture. You remember that at server side, things that we have inside web-inf, web-inf, this openly contains something called as web.xml followed by all HTML or I could say key UI components, right? and it contains meta-inf, and it contains a folder called classes, which will contain subpackages of class files packages. And then parallel to this, we also have application library, we call it as, which for this basically contains all jars. Okay, so this is how it is. Like basically, this is the basic structure of the WebINF. That's how it is. Now here, whenever there is a request coming to a WebINF through Tomcat server, I told you, he first get into this web.xml, checking who is the welcome page, URI is there or not, kind of thing. Remember that point, right? So this candidate actually contains the entire configuration of your application. So that's why he is called as web config. So this person web.xml is called as web app configuration file. Now this candidate, the web app configuration file, is what we are going to discuss now, so that we can understand what might have happened in the background. Now this web.xml or web app configuration file typically contains code like this: web-app /web-app. Now this web app is what do you call this, topmost root kind of element what we have. Within web app, we have the first ever thing as a welcome file list. Basically, this helps us to identify who the hell is a welcome file. So here you have welcome file list, closer tag, by the way, I'm sorry. Now within this tag, we have something called as welcome file, where we have given index.html or JSP slash welcome file. Okay. Now this fellow is ready. So here we have given the first basic configuration. Who is the welcome file of our application? This is the first configuration. There are so many other configurations we will set, but important things we are setting. Now here, whenever you try to ask someone here, the request typically comes in this format. So http colon / localhost colon 8080 / your application name Amazon / जैसे कि हमारा category controller. This is what we were asking, right? So who is this category controller all about? So this category controller, what you are asking, is called a URI. Question mark, you are passing some data to him. I mean, assume you are passing some data to him. Okay. Now, first point, you need to understand who is this category controller and how the Tomcat server identifies him. Okay, this web.xml at runtime, while the time of building and giving, it basically will be written up to the servlet version of 2.4, 2.5. I'm saying. Okay, here we need to mention who is this category control. That means configuration of every servlet. So this is how it actually goes. There are two important kind of tags that are available. The first tag is called as servlet -name. That's a servlet tag /servlet, and it also contains URL -name, servlet -mapping / servlet -mapping. So the server basically first comes to the servlet mapping, in which there are two tags: servlet -name / servlet -name, and here you have URL pattern / URL pattern. So this URL pattern decides how the request is coming on the name of the URI, जैसे कि slash category controller. So this is what we mentioned, slash category controller. This is how the request will come. So whenever there is a request coming in this format, give this to someone called a CC. Okay, who is CC? We don't know who is CC, right? Even the Tomcat server don't know. So here you need to mention who is CC. So here you can say, देखो भैया ये है CC का details, servlet hyphen name which is CC slash servlet hyphen name, and then who is this fellow? So here we will mention servlet hyphen class is com dot cmr dot amazon dot controller package dot category controller, and then say slash servlet hyphen class. So by saying like this, so what I'm trying to convey here is, देखो भैया, whenever you try to get a request like this, you got to understand this is the name of the servlet class. So this is where the servlet class persists. Now I said like this. Now this is what my servlet configuration. So here what happens, now this is your URL. Let's say we actually mention whatever we are saying in this form dot action. So here you say form action is equals to something, right? Here you will supply your URI. This URI must be equals to the one what you are mentioning, and the same URI what you mention over here. This is what you will call when you mention URI, when you are requesting, this is what it comes. This URI must be exactly equal to this URL pattern. Okay, now this URL pattern what you are saying is registered when the Tomcat server starts. So this is what we call as servlet config. Now a servlet config is a combination of one servlet and one servlet mapping set. Now what if we have 100 servlets as a part of our application? Please understand, you are supposed to write 100 servlet and servlet mapping combinations. Am I clear? Compulsory, right? This is how you will let it recognize. Now the scenario changes. In the latest model, annotation based mapping have come up. So on the head of our servlet, where we are writing the servlet, right? Let's say we have a class called category servlet. Okay, so which basically in the old style says key extends HTTP servlet. Now this one, what we were specifying previously, is not a part of code nowadays. So here you have to annotate it saying @web servlet. By specifying on the head of this, it is identified as a servlet which extends HTTP servlet, and here you could mention key slash category controller, which says that the code, this is the URL mapping for this. So easy, isn't it? Sir, but what happens behind the scenes is in the web.config, this is how it is written, and this is how it is picked up. Now that's what I was speaking about. Now this web configuration file contains so many configurations like this originally. If you have not written to facilitate you, okay, Tomcat server will write it while the time of loading the application. How it will write, how the Tomcat will know? Well, it will go and search the entire application for those classes who are notated as web servlet, and then find out these URL path and then registered it as a where it is, and then it actually knows which class file actually contains what path. It maintains a map. So every URL now contains a hash map which will contain the name of the URL that you are asking, and finally which class it is pointing to. So whenever there is a call coming to this URL, the server directly jumps to that particular class from the map pickup, and then it runs it. It is such simple thing. Understood or not? This is what we call as servlet config, which happens in the background. Okay. Previously we were doing this manually. Nowadays it is done by the Tomcat server for your convenience. You simply write like this. That's it. You will simply write like this, and it actually identifies this entire stuff what you have seen just. Clear? Now, this is what a servlet config means. So to load a servlet into memory, Tomcat server requires this configuration, which we will supply. Now, who calls this init method? Please understand. Server calls or web server. That means what am I trying to say? We will not init a servlet manually. Now, when this server calls it, so when first URL is called, first time, for the first time when a URI is called, a web server, okay, so initiate this web server calls the init method and then gets this servlet loaded. Okay, after it is loaded, after the work is over, there is something called as destroy method called throws servlet exception, which basically removes servlet instance from memory. This is also called by the server, not by us, but when it actually removes the servlet from memory. Well, this happens only when either OS or Tomcat or web server restarts, or your application is removed from the server. So only in these cases, okay, server only free memory server calls it basically. When it calls basically is this scenario. So you cannot call it manually. That means destroy is also not called by us. Init is also not called by us. Now, whenever you call it for the first time, whenever the first request happens, servlet loads into memory and it will never die until and unless you either restart your whole operating system or restart the web server or remove your application and try to redeploy the new version of the application. At that point of time only, all the servlets that are loaded will be called with their respective destroy methods. Please remember, servlet once initialized or loaded into the memory will stay in the memory to serve multiple clients repeatedly. Now I'm coming to the main point. How do these fellows serve? After initialization and post to destroy method, he basically serves by calling a function public void service. Who call this method? We call it no. Only server only can call it. You cannot. You simply call the URL and all the methods are called one after another. So it calls init for the first time and calls the service method repeatedly as long as requests are coming. And finally, it calls destroy method of the servlet when you restart your application. So the service typically takes servlet request as a parameter to read all the request and servlet response as a parameter to supply the response, and this fellow throws servlet exception comma IO exception. Why IO exception? He's reading something from the client, he's writing something to the client, so he typically goes into IO exception. Am I clear? So this is the theory behind. Now tree methods. And apart from that, we also have something called as get servlet config, which return the current servlet config method. And you can also get details of the servlet by calling toString kind of method. So we don't work with them. Now, who are these servlet requests and who is this servlet response? How they help this candidate? So these are also interfaces, helping interfaces to the servlet. He has got certain methods and we also have certain methods. We will discuss only those which are important to us. The first important method is, as I told you, whenever a request comes, let's say I'll try to write a small request over here for your convenience so that you people can understand. So let's say to the category controller, how it is coming. So here http://localhost:/Amazon/category controller cat name is equals to sports. This is how it is coming. So here, please try to understand here, param name, which is coming to me as cat name, and param value, which is coming to me here is sports. Okay, this is what I am giving in the text field and then passing it. It is getting it as a cat name. So to get this request parameter, which is coming to me as a part of this, so here I will say public, the return type is string, because HTML basically deals only with strings. All the params are coming, will be read in the form of string only, because HTML is only meant for strings, hypertext markup language. So there is a method called get parameter and string param name is what you are supposed to give this one. Let's say if you have to say, for instance, request.get parameter of cat name. So for instance, you need to say request.get parameter of cat name. Okay, this returns, what is the value coming? Sports. So this is written in the form of string. Remember this. Now sometimes you may get more than one value as a request parameter. जैसे कि checkbox. Okay, there could be more than one checkbox with the same name. Hobbies. I mean to say hobbies. In such case, you will get public a string array of strings, get parameter values for a string param name. So here hobbies kind of thing, you will get all the values coming on the name of a parameter. Now if you don't know how many parameters are there at all which are coming as a part of request, you could actually call something called as enumeration, called get parameter names. So this basically returns you enumeration of all parameter names. You know, enumeration is a kind of iterator kind of person. Enumeration or enumerator, what we call as, have two methods. Public boolean has more elements, and public object next element, just like iterator. Okay, so these are the two methods we call. Boolean has more elements and the return type is object next element. By calling these two methods, basically we will try to get every parameter name and then supply the parameter name here, and then we get the value. So whenever you don't know how many request parameters are coming, you can opt for this kind of procedure. Now and we have one more method, public. Return type is request dispatcher get request dispatcher on string target page or component, or target component I can simply say. So who is this? So here target can be HTML or JSP or servlet. Now who is this fellow? Is basically who takes the request. Let's say my servlet have taken the request, and after processing the request I wanted to give my output to someone else. Then I can create a request dispatcher on some other servlet target, and I can say forward, and then the entire request response of my servlet will be forwarded to other one. Similarly, if I wanted to include the request response or output of the other person, I will create a request dispatcher on the target and I will call include. Then output of that will be included as a part of my output. We have seen it by including add category.html output as a part of our output, correct? So this is the main importance of request dispatcher. And there are a few more methods, but we mainly work on these three methods basically. And as a part of this one, servlet response, we have methods like this. public void set content type. Please understand, you have to set this value mandatorily. Here you need to supply a string MIME type. MIME types are like, text by plain, which will be the default one, text by HTML, and text by what do you call this? Uh, Text by XML, and you have got application by JSON, image by JPEG, blah blah blah. So many MIME types are there. You need to know a standard MIME types, which will vary from one version of HTTP protocol to another version. That means the kind of objects they support. Once upon a time, there was no support for passing Flash or PDF. Later, they have added that one. Later, they have added JSON. So these MIME types will vary and will be included more and more MIME types as long as the version increases. Am I clear? So you got to have an understanding of how many MIME types which we generally support as a part of our output. Now, it's not necessary that you have coded something, and then if your thing is running on an old browser, you cannot help it. You may wanted to return a flash file, but what if the client is accessing from a ekdam older browser, Internet Explorer 4.0 or 3.0? You are gone case. Now you cannot control that, okay? So, but you can set it, and then here public void set content length. So here you could supply long size, content size. So here this decides what is the highest content or the length of the content you wanted to send it back. Even if you are trying to send an image or PDF which is highest also, it won't be sent. It will send only this much. Okay. Now here the important method in this one is public return type is print writer. There is a method called getWriter. So the moment when you call response.getWriter, a server will create a pointer to the client directly and creates a print writer object pipe to that browser and then give you. All you need is simply out.println, and whatever you write will be automatically flushed. Now here please try to understand. Print writer object created with auto flush capabilities. What do you mean by auto flush capabilities? Remember, we were working on a file writing example. In when we say print writer object true, the moment you need not actually call flush method automatically. The moment when you say write, it automatically flushes that also. Okay, so these are all the important methods of servlet response. And the interface, the fellow who helps is request dispatcher, have these following two methods. So the first method is public void include. The other method is public void forward. Both of them have the same kind of signature as the service method, who will take servlet request and servlet response as parameters to the target. Okay, so these are the main important people. Apart from this, we have servlet context and servlet config also, but you know, what do you call this? We work with them into very rare. So we don't work with them, frankly speaking, as a part of our portion at least, because I'm not trying to teach you the complete Naresh kind of Naresh IT kind of course here. It's not possible. I was given exactly strictly 8 days of time, 8 days, fixed 8 days, each considered as 7 hours a day. So the entire portion what I'm covering are to be covered, has to be completed within that. Maybe they'll be giving a grace of something. So here, teaching you the complete depth Java, which will take in Narasheti जैसे कि daily 2 hours or 1.5 hour into 6 months or 1 year is not possible. So we'll try to teach you everything and anything in a precise format. Later again, while the time of practicing, you will get note to many other things. Now this this package, what you are seeing, have only one class, a public abstract class called generic servlet, who have implemented this servlet interface so that he can give service method, but we don't know how to give service method. He has implemented init and destroyed all other methods. He has left this service method as abstract. So public abstract void service, which will take request comma response and throws servlet exception comma IO exception kind of thing. So he left this method for the people who wanted to get the servlet behavior can. Now, what is the rule said? Rule says ki whoever implements this servlet is a servlet. That's what we said. So rule, what is rule? Rule of Java. What is that? Anyone who implements servlet is a servlet and he only can serve web request. This is what is being said as a rule. In such case, if I wanted to develop web application and I wanted to serve the web request, I must be a servlet. So there is only one way who have to implement it. But if you don't know how to initiate a servlet, how to destroy a servlet, which is cup of tea from the server, and you wanted to implement only the service method, the best way to do it is simply extend generic servlet, because he has done that part, init and destroy. So what is that he left is only service which you implement and then you provide your service. Let's say this service method will vary from one to another. For example, if I'm asking for registration, the service method will be different, wherein he need to perform insert operation. If I say login, the service method will be different, wherein he need to take username and password, check in the server whether the given username and password persist or not, return true or false. That means from one action to another action, the service method behavior is changing. That's the reason why you have to implement it whenever you wanted to write your serving functionality. Well, so these people, whatever you have seen, the servlet root interface is same. We cannot touch that one. But the servlet request and servlet response, as well as Mr. Generic Servlet, do have their HTTP version. So here there is an interface called HTTP servlet request who extends servlet request. We have interface HTTP servlet response who extends HTTP I'm sorry servlet response, and I do have a class and he is also abstract class HTTP servlet who extends generic servlet. Why he also have any unimplemented method? No. He has implemented all of the methods of the generic servlet pending with a generic version of implementation. That means no implementation, empty implementation. So something like this, he has added few more methods. Public void do get, which will take HTTP servlet request req comma HTTP servlet response res throws servlet exception comma IO exception, and he has given implementation like this. What is that? An empty implementation. Okay. Control C. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is this? Do get, and he has got do post. He has got do options, and he has got do delete. I seriously have never worked with all of these them. I always work with the service. Okay, but what are these methods then? Well, you know that the request which is coming is a get request, you go for do get. You know that request coming is a do post, you go for do post. You know that request is coming as a delete option, form action is equals to method is equals to, you go for delete. But if I don't know what method this is coming, it is better to go with service method. I always go with this fellow. Okay, so apart from this one, he has implemented all of them. But why he has given himself as abstract is because he has got a servlet behavior, and by extending HTTP servlet, you are also a servlet with minimum effort. Now, what is this HTTP servlet request contains? It adds few extra methods compared to servlet request. Servlet request as if it is particular to normal any kind of protocol, but this is particular to HTTP. He has got so many methods like this. For example, he has got You know, HTTP request packets contains headers. So if you wanted to know how many headers are there as a part of your request, you know headers, right? When you are receiving a data packet that contains a header part, content part, and an address of next packet. So the header part contains a browser version, language supported, what is the remote host, what is the date when the data packet is created, expiry time, XYZ, and everything. So here you wanted to know what are the headers that are coming as a part of the request. You could actually call the, what do you call this, a string, okay, get header by supplying string header name. What if you are getting more than one value in a single header name? So you have got public a string array get header names on a string header name. It's header values, not name, I'm sorry. Okay, and similarly, if you really don't know how many headers are coming as a part of request, you are free to call public enumeration get header names, and you could actually get all the header names which are coming on your list. The way we are, enumeration in request also get parameter names. The same way we will try to get each header name from the enumeration has more elements and the next element, and we will supply that name here, and we will get the header value. So it returns value of the header. Apart from this, you wanted to know so many things. You can say public string get request method. You can get whether it is post or get or do options or do delete, whatever it is, and you can have public get resource name. You will get the URI on which name it is coming, and then you can call public string get context name. You can actually get Amazon, and you could actually get public string get protocol. You will get either it is coming as HTTP blah blah blah, and you can get public string get request what do you call it, simply port number, I think, I don't remember. Get port, which returns the port number which is coming on the request, and the public string get remote host, so on which name the thing is coming, request is coming. And then ultimately we have one more thing, like you have a request, you received it, and you are passing the request to a request dispatcher. Please try to understand. Repeat this. You get a request, you process it for some extent. Let's say I'll take this as a bank check clearance example. Whenever you go to an old bank like Andhra Bank or an SBI, you try to withdraw a check. You take your check, give to the clerk. You know what he will do? He actually add extra parameter to your check. After checking whether the account number is having bank balance or not, he will write the token number back to the check and then give you a small receipt or a token, gold color coin kind of thing, to your hand and ask you to wait. And then this check is passed to the section where a signature and authentication is verified. Okay, and then it reaches the cashier section. The cashier who have received the check, which is the first request from you, plus added parameter, which is the token number, will type the token over there, and then the counter actually speaks token number 25, and then you go there, who's your token number, and then try to collect your cash. Now, how do you pass that extra information if the same kind of case to be implemented as a part of servlet? You understand what I'm trying to say? It's something like you receive a request and you have processed it and you are passing it or forwarding it to another servlet. To that servlet, along with the original request and response, which you are here it is, which you are forwarding, the original request and response you are forwarding. Along with this original request and response, you wanted to add extra params. Then you have got a method called public void set attribute, which will take string attr name comma object val or attr val. So here, if you wanted at the other end, after receiving this request, if you wanted to read that attribute which is coming an extra, you can say public, the return type is called as an object, get attribute, which will take string attr name to be supplied. Okay. Now, one more point here is same kind of thing, enumeration kind of stuff, get all attributes names kind of method is there, I think. Now, one more point here is this fellow HTTP servlet deals with an important point called session, get session, and similarly an overloaded method of this is public HTTP session, get session, boolean, create new. So what is this? Session is nothing but information of the client which will be managed at server side. For example, I am logging in. Okay. In the first request, I am passing username and password, and which is successful. And then next time also, if I like, only my mails are returned. Now, when I click on a mail ID, it will go back and then I will get back mail related contents. But how do I get my name also displayed on the browser header? For example, here, whenever you try to log in on the head of this section, you will get welcome Ram Shankar kind of name also as a part of Gmail. How the server remember my name and then return it back as a part of response? So for the server to give the facility of remembering, we will supply a session. So here when you say request.get session, it returns if it returns existing session object if one exists, else returns null. How about this one is the same thing, returns session if exists, else create a new one and returns. That means even if you don't have a session also, it will create a new session and returns. Okay. Now please try to understand. Creates new session plus returns. Okay. So this is the significance of HTTP session get session of true. For the first time in the login page, we will call this one. And then from the next page onwards, we will call this one. Remember. Now, who is this Mr. Response is all about? So here, the HTTP response have got one extra method, public void send redirect, wherein you can give a string target servlet or JSP from current app or other URL. That means not only you can get, you can redirect your response to the another servlet or JSP of a current application. Rather, you can leave this complete application and go to a new website also. Okay, this is the one. Plus, he has got something like public void set response code int response code, and here you can have public int get response code kind of thing. So what is this response code is like our 404 402 kind of errors. Okay, and you also have public void set response message, wherein you could supply string message to be displayed. 404 not font replacement. If you wanted to give anything, you can set it. So here you need to supply response message of int response code comma and its corresponding message. So whenever that response is written from this particular thing, this particular message will be written. Something like this. We have got few more important methods over here in servlet response. Now, who is this session? This is what is important. So here a public interface HTTP session is very important when it comes to web application development. This fellow once created have the capability to pass any number of attributes which he will maintain at server side, So here you have public void set attributes, same two different kind of methods, set attribute and get attribute, and he will maintain it at the server side. Now, what if you wanted to know whether the current session is an existing session or a new session? You can always check public boolean is new, so it will return true or false. If it is true, it's a new session. If not, it's an existing session. Similarly, public void set max inactive interval. What is this max inactive interval? You know what is meant by session. Let's say you have logged in, and then if you don't touch that site for a certain period of time, some sites they automatically log out you for your security purpose, thinking that you might be logged in an internet center and then forgot to log out, or power has gone. Could be any reason. So in such cases, your information should be logged out. So here you can set what is the max inactive interval time, int minutes. Make clear, this is session timeout is what we call as. Make clear, session timeout setting. Okay, and finally, if you wanted to remove a session, you can say public void invalidate. By calling this, a session will be removed from the server side. So these are important methods when it comes to session, which we will maintain, and then we will set attribute, we will read attribute. And apart from this, you can actually set values at the context level also. Now, if you set, please remember, if you set a request attribute, this is available only till the next request. Let's say I'll come here. Now, control A, I'll remove this entire stuff. Let's say this is my servlet one, okay, which is receiving request from the client. This is my request. And using request dispatcher, I am forwarding this to some other servlet, and from there it may go to some other JSP file. But here everywhere my request is getting forwarded whenever you say request.forward, request.forward, request.forward. The request is getting forwarded. But in this, after doing certain operations, I have set something called as response.send redirect. The moment when I say response.send redirect, even if the resource belongs to the same application or other application, please try to understand. In a resource of other app, this is of same app, you still, this response, only response object is being passed, request object is stopped over here. So here the entire thing goes here and a new request is being formed and response is being passed from here to here. So here what it will go is as a new request object. Now this is the problem. That means whatever the elements so far we are maintaining as a part of request, thinking that in the first request, so I have got let's say username and I have got password, and after checking the login I have got the name of the person. So here I said request dot set attribute of name. So this one that I have set over here after login check will be maintained here. So now in this request, what is that I have is uname, password and name, and the same is passed over here. Here also I will contain uname, let's say password and name, thinking that, assuming that here on the second level this person may remove unnecessary things. For example, he don't want to maintain password everywhere. So here after showing the same page, you could say request dot remove attribute of name, or I forgot to tell you this method. There is a method called remove attribute also, apart from set and get attributes. So let's come back here and then say public void remove attribute, and then simply supply attr name, and then particular attribute will be removed. Control C, and the same is there at the HTTP session level also. So after this has been removed, on the next servlet level, now I will maintain username and name at least. But after request send redirect, these username and name are gone because it is a new request which is getting formed. Now, how do you maintain this username and password in such a kind of case also? Then you better set it as a session. So here at this level or at this level, wherever, I'll have to set a session. So I will have to say something like this. So if I have to say session dot set attribute of username and I could say session dot set attribute of name. These two with values I will set, by the way, comma some value, and after setting is even if user responses send redirect at this receiver's level, you will still have session. That means a session is maintained over here. Am I clear? Let's say there is certain element which you wanted to pass among all the JSPs and servlets which are running in your application, and you could actually set it at the context level. If you say context dot set attribute, and this context level attribute will be visible, it's like kind of static, you know, the one which is visible to everyone, to one, this one, everyone. Even if you redirect or even if you forward using request dispatcher, whatever it is, here it will be set. Okay, so these are the three different kind of scopes we maintain. When it comes to JSP, you have one more scope. One is a page scope. I mean, only to that JSP. That means here visibility of the value is only within this request. So here, wherever request is dispatched, and another is session. Even after response is redirected. One is context. Irrespective of to that one, all components of our app. Okay, so these are the two different kind of four different kind of context. We call this fellow context as something called as page context. What is this? We call him as a page context. So in servlet we simply call it as a servlet context, and JSP we call it as a page context. Ultimately in the background this is taken as servlet context only. So these are the scopes where we keep values and then we will share among different servlets and then use them. So this is the API, simply speaking. Okay, so what is that we use now? Well, the same method what you see here, you will not cross more than these methods. I haven't used not even 80% or 70% of these methods also in my 20 years of career. We hardly go for other methods. This is clear about this API. So how many we have? Servlet request, servlet response. On the top level, this will be extended by HTTP servlet and HTTP response. We basically work in the what do you call this, at our in normal our application. So whenever you deal with servlets, you may use all these methods. Okay, so let's see how do we set the session value and how do we receive the session at the other end using a simple example now. Okay, so we will go back here. Parallelly, I'll open MySQL admin. Excuse me. ఎవరు పాటలు పెట్టుకుని అప్పనా సౌండ్ తగ్గివా నిమిషం పిల్లలు okay, sorry, I came to a separate room where I was getting disturbance from the songs. Right. Now I'll try to create a small table in our Amazon. So here is in our Amazon. I have category product. I'll try to create a very small table for the this today's login session demo purpose called user master. And in this user master, I'll create ID. Let's say think that this is for admin users, okay na? Or I can call it as admin users. Admin users, okay. So ID, and you have username Warcraft 45. You have password Warcraft 45. You have name of the admin Warcraft 45. Think small table, okay na? I'll say apply changes, execute. Well, table is created. Simple. Now here in this table I wanted to add one or two users also. Edit table data, and I'll click on below small button called edit. I'll click it and I'll try to enter the username जैसे कि ram 123 and Ram Shankar. Okay, and I will also create one more. Let's say key Sai 123 and Sai Kishore, or let's say Raj Kishore sir. I'll change this as Raj 123 as the username and password. So now I'll click on apply change. So now you see I have two users who can log in using the given usernames and then passwords. So that's it. Now my database is ready. I will go to CMR project. Now here I wanted to show you one more provision we have got. So let me close everyone, close all. So I will expand this Amazon and I will go to this Java resources, SRC, and go to this DAO. Here I have a DAO, right, in which I have defined 4 methods or 5 methods, and I have said this is supposed to be compulsory implemented. All right. So this one, for this user master, for example, it may not be required to work on this method. May not be required. So rather, I may have to work on someone, a different kind of thing. But I may be working with this get method, but I may not be interested in getting that the list method. So here, what is that I do? I may supply a default implementation to this default, and here instead of closing, so I will give an empty implementation. So here in this one, I'll say return null. Similarly, this is also I'll say default. These are the default methods which are introduced in Java 8. Let's say you are defining an interface and you are not interested to force everyone to implement every method. This may be implemented, this may not be implemented, but this must be implemented. If you wanted to give such a kind of provision, then you can give a default implementation to this method. If nobody is implementing, and then this implementation will be applied. However, you as an end user have the capability to override these methods. So it is a very good practice to supply a default implementation. Control S. Okay. Now I just wanted to give a default implementation to everyone. Can I give it? Yes, you can. Default boolean save, and you can simply supply like this. The return type is boolean. You can say return false. And similarly, you can say default boolean, and you can supply some implementation over here, and you can say return false. And here also on the delete you can provide default implementation, and you can supply return false. So here what happens, by extending this DAO, you will not be forced to implement any other method. Okay. So because of this reason, I'll go to Amazon DAO and I will try to get rid of these two. That's it. These are the 3 provisions I have, and remaining I won't be forcing anyone. Now I'll come how this DAO, and here first of all I'll come to this entity. Here we have category and product. I will add a third entity. Right click, new Java class file. Okay, whose name is admin users. So these admin users will contain these 3 fields: private, integer, ID, private string, username, private string, password, private string, name. Wait a second, guys. So I'll try to supply the setters and getters for it. So I'll say source generate getters and setters. I'll choose select all and then say OK. And I don't forget to say here this candidate implements serializable. Okay. Now I'll also supply an ID and encrypted serializable ID. Okay. Now after that I have made this in a proper way. Here Control S, I will go to the DAO and I will create a new DAO. Right click new Java class. जिसका नाम है admin users DAO, and this fellow I'll simply say extends Amazon DAO. Now I am not interested to override any method, but I am interested in checking a new method, a public, okay, a string called check login, to which I will supply user master UM. So I will supply username password in an encrypted format to this fellow, and I want him. Didn't I say this user master? Oh, sorry, it's not user master. My mistake. What is the name of this table we have? Is admin users AU. Now, so here I will try to say by default I'll think in a negative thinking. I'll say wrong user is the word I wanted to return. But here I will try something, and I wanted to return the actual name of the user. Okay. So what is that I do here is I'll have my connection and other stuff open, and I'll try to get this done. So here I will try to get this fellow by calling con is equals to, sorry, inside it. Con is equals to नाम क्या था उसका, I forgot the common table name, dbcon factory. So here I have dbcon factory. Dot get connection. I got my connection. I'll say statement is equals to con dot create statement, and I'll say rs is equals to statement dot execute query of MySQL. What is MySQL? So here I will try to form the SQL over here. SQL is equals to something. What is that? Select. I need to get ID of the candidate. Please try to understand ID of the candidate as well as name of the candidate from admin users table, where username is equals to something, comma, password is equals to something. So here it is. So I'll bring it down and then say the username is coming to me from the above object AU. You'll say key admin user dot get username, and password is equals to double quotes, 2 pluses, and then say AU dot get password. So that's my query, and I'll try to supply this simple SQL query over here. Now I got my result. Please try to understand. If I get at least one row with the supplied username and password, meaning of that is I have got a record persist. Given username and password are correct, and I know that with the given username and password I'll get only one row. So here if I say if rs dot next, while ki zarurat nahi hai, you can simply say if rs dot next. So because why you are using if function? Because we get only one row. We get only one row or no rows. So if I get at least one row, then I am performing this one. What is that I am doing? The current AU which is carrying me which is carrying me the username and password. ID is also not necessary. If you wanted to maintain ID in the future, well, the return type is not string, rather the return type will be admin user. Let's say I wanted to return the same object as a return type. Okay, so here I wanted to return AU. That's simple. Now before I returning, I will set ID and name of this fellow and return it. So here I'll say AU dot set ID as RS dot get the integer coming at the first column, which is in the column of ID, and similarly AU dot set the name as RS dot get the string coming from the second column. I'm bringing only two columns, ID and name. So I'm setting that as a first column, a second column. And once my work is over, I'll return this fellow. And here I will not forget to write finally, within which I will say try catch exception E. And here I'll say system.out.println of that E. And there I will try to say statement dot close and con dot close control S, right? That's it. That is my DAO will do. So he will help me in checking the login. Now it is time for us, like we have the database layer ready. So what is that we require now is we need to prepare the UI layer as well as the servlet layer. So here I'll come to the web content section and I will create a new small HTML file. Okay, so here I will call this fellow as a I'm sorry. Yeah, what happened to me? Shit, yeah. HTML file. Okay, I will say index.html. I wanted this to be the first file of my application, and I'll say next, and I'll take 5 and then say finish. So here is my index.html. So this I'll try to open using normal editor, right click, and open with the HTML editor. So here I will simply supply it with a pretty easy thing. I'll say key form action is equals to, I'll call this fellow login controller, and method is equals to post. Why post? Because I'm passing password here. Come on, it should be an encrypted format. So here I'll say username, and I will try to give input type is equals to text, and the name is equals to username, and I'll say required, and I will say the next one password input type is equals to password, and whose name is also is equals to password, and I will also say required, and then we are finally I will supply input type is equals to submit, and value is equals to login. Okay, now cool. So here I wanted to have a login functionality who is supplying to login controller. What are the parameters I'm supplying? Username and password. So do we have the controller over here? No. See, this is how I develop everyone one by one. So I'll close this Amjan DAO and this one. So the way I develop is the step number 1, I create my table. Step number 2, I create my entity. Step number 3, I'll make my DAO ready with required functionalities to be called. And then step number 4, I'll make my UI, because the person who give input is ready, the person who save input is also ready. Now I need to bring the mediator as a last person controller. So here I will go here, right click new, and I'll go with Mr. Servlet, and I'll call this servlet login controller. Okay, so here this is what it is, and you will say bhaiya this is the name and this is the URL pattern you need to call. I'll say कि ठीक है मेरे को समझ में आ गया, and here I am supposed to or I'm interested in giving only service method, not the constructor, and so finish. Well, the servlet is ready. So all you need to write is your code inside the service method, which will receive this request and forward you to some home page if your username password is correct. If not, take you back to the HTML page asking you to enter correct password or username. Let's see. So here, step number 1. Okay, read the username, comma, password coming in request. Step number 2, set these values to admin users entity. Step number 3, create object of admin users DAO, call his login check of the admin users entity. So here entity is what we supply. And then as a fourth step, read the response object, or I could say read the admin users object with the supplied or object supplied with the ID comma name. Then as a fifth step, check if name is available. So take to home page, else show wrong username message. Okay, this is what I need to do. These are my works as a controller. This is how I divide my whole work and then develop. So writing comments in a code is always good. So what is the step number 1? I am reading the username and password. I set the string username is equals to request object dot get parameter coming as username. Right. And string password is equals to request object dot get parameter coming as password. Now you have read step number 1 is over. What is the step number 2? Supply them to admin users. So you actually can say create object of admin users entity and set these values. So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to say admin users AU is equals to new admin users, and I will try to supply AU dot set the username of username. That's why I'm creating the same username so that it automatically will comments it when you say AU dot set password of password, and it automatically comes and sets. Now this work is also over. What's the next step? Supply this value to admin user DAO. So admin users DAO AU DAO is equals to new admin users DAO, and I will say AU DAO dot check login of AU create. But what is the return type? Return type itself is also AU is equals to. So what am I trying to do is the current AU object I am replacing with the one what I'm getting. So the current AU contains only username and password. When I replace this value, I am also getting the other stuff. So please do not forget here when you are supplying that you are setting only 2 things, and then it is always good if is rs.text. What if you don't get the value? Here I have an incomplete, but I'm really sorry. What if you do not get these 2? That means if you don't get the ID and name with a given username and password, that means whatever you are getting are wrong. So here you could actually say AU dot set the ID as a 0, that means a wrong one, and you can say AU dot set name as a wrong user. So simple. When you say invalid user or wrong user, you can actually say invalid user, and that's simple. So here I will be checking if the return value contains invalid user or ID is equals 0. That means whatever you are returning is an invalid user. That means with the given username and password, I did not get any record. That is the meaning. So I will come down here. Even if while the time of executing this exception also, you could do it in the same way. So here also you could do the same thing here. You can say AU dot set ID of 0, and you could say au dot set name as a invalid user. So by setting this in the exception also, even if something goes wrong with the query, I'll still show the same thing. Well, I will come back to this login controller. So here after the checking, I need to read the supply name. So here I will say string name is equals to whatever I have got it. What is that? Au dot get the name. Now here I am making my decision. So to make the decision, I'll take the help of request dispatcher PATCHER RD. So I will import this fellow request dispatcher. RD is equals to request dot get request dispatcher on something called as नाम क्या था हमारा index.html. This fellow will help me if something goes wrong. That means if invalid user comes. So here I am checking. First I'm checking the negative condition. If this name dot equals ignore case of something called as invalid user. In such a kind of case, you can say print writer out is equals to response dot get writer and then say rd dot include the requested response. Then after including the output of this index.html, below you can say out.println and in center. Okay, in center you can say h3 style is equals to something slash h3. Okay, so wrong username or password. The style here I'll say color colon red. So within red color, I wanted to showcase wrong username and password. This is all happening if this fellow is an invalid user. That means in the response, if I am getting invalid user, else if this is not the case, that means whatever we have got is a proper user. Now here I could simply redirect him to home page. I can say response dot send redirect. I need not maintain any request related information, username or password. I need to maintain certain things else. So here I'll say send redirect to, let's say, what do you call this? Admin home.jsp. So here I will go to JSP. Why JSP? There are certain dynamic things that I need to show. Now because I am redirecting to set, okay, na, set username comma name to be used at server side in session. So here I'll maintain session. So now here I'll say HTTP session. I'll simply say session is equals to request object dot get session of first time I'm doing. So I'll say create new true. Then I will say session object dot set attribute of what all the things I wanted to set. I wanted to set a username. Basically username को कोई फायदा नहीं because admin is not going to do any operations where we are tracking the username, but I wanted to supply the username for conveniency. Maybe as per to requirement I may use it. Then I can say session dot set. I mean I'm trying to showcase you here how do you send different or more than one attribute to the session. So name, which is coming to me as a name attribute, and then these are the two things I have set, and I have send it over here response to admin home.jsp. So the servlet will be redirected completely, leaving the current context to the next one. So there, if you wanted to say hello to this fellow, hi admin, welcome. So in such a kind of case, you will be using a session. Okay, now this is the main use of session. So he carries this username name forwards to this admin page.jsp. So here I'll come down to the web content. I will create a new JSP file, not HTML. I'm creating a JSP file and give the fellow's name as admin home. Okay, and then finish. So here on the top of this, I will try to showcase whatever I have on this one. Why did I open this one? I need to open this one, right? Category. No. अरे यार वो तो चला गया क्या? Welcome patch. चलो ठीक है. I will say H1. I will say center and slash center. Admin home, and then below to him I just wanted to say hi, so I will say H3 and I will say welcome, and here I will simply say scriptlet is equals to session object dot get attribute coming on the name of name. It is that simple. Okay, so control S, I just wanted to see whether this will work or not, and here I wanted to see a small HR horizontal rule and control S. Let's see this entire functionality, whether this will be properly working or not. So who should be started? The application should be started. I will get a welcome kind of message. Same way, the way I have, I'll try to say control C, and then I'll go here, and on the top of this body, I'll say control V. So here, Amazon and okay, Amazon and what do you call this? So here I'll try to create a web content new, a small HTML file. And I'll call this fellow admin login. HTML5 and then finish. So here it is admin login. I will create everything in admin login. Index page I will give a link to admin login. Okay. So open with this HTML editor. So what is this admin login should contain is whatever you have in your index. So I'll take out this one, control C, and here I'll say control V. So I'll come down to index. Now I'll remove the form and I will give here a hrefs is equals to something. Okay, and I will say this below align is equals to right. So I will take him to admin login.html. So here I will simply say admin login controls. Now let's see how this will be. So there is an index page which will have a link to admin login on the top, and then probably below he would be showing the entire facility of admin. So here I will say h1 and line is equals to center. This is, so that's what he says कि यहाँ पे center निकाल दो and then give your alignment to h1. So that is a warning they are giving. So we will remove this, and then this h1 I will say line is equals to key center. Here also I will say double quote controls. Okay. Now the warnings have gone. So let's see this one. Okay, now H3 line is equals to right, and I'll remove this align. This says key align is not defined for anchor. So here something like this we need to manage. And here I will say here your site content will be displayed. Site content or site products. Where your products of Amazon site will be displayed. Control S. So this is what my index page is. We will define it later on slowly. For time being, what I'm saying is from this index, I'm having a link to admin login. When I click this, I'll go here and I'm forming a call to login controller. Let me maintain my standards. Okay. Now that I have written everything in a proper way, Control S. Okay. So attribute value is not closed. Is that so? It is closed. So this one must come here. Then here. Let's see this Control S. Let's run this entire stuff. So I will come down to the Amazon and I will say right click, run as, run on the server. So it is loading, and the index file what I have mentioned in the welcome file will be loading as a starting point of the application. This is it. So here is my welcome page. So in future, what is that we do? We divide this into two tables. The left side menu kind of thing will contain all the categories. When you click on a single category, it will display the products over here. That's how we will develop this site. Okay. So here I'll click on admin login. Now here is admin login come. I will supply admin 1, 2, 3, which are not there in my database. So we click on login. So here I will be getting this value. You have an error in your MySQL syntax. Password is equals to admin 1, 2, 3. There are two single quotes applied if I'm not mistaken. So let's go back to my DAO and then see what is it I'm supplying. Here, AU as password. And there is a password. Oh, this one. It is not comma. I am supposed to use and symbol, Control S. Where condition should not contain commas. It's not a set kind of operation, right? I'm not using alter database or update query set. No, that's a wrong point. So here I'll try to run it one more time. Run as Java application. Run on the server. Kya mistake. Run on the server. So let the server restarts with the latest entry I have done, and by removing the comma symbol. Here it goes. Run it again. Supply the value ABC PQR, which are wrong username passwords. Login. Well, I must get this wrong username and password. So it has come back to index because index is what I have mentioned in your controller. So where is this controller, Mr. Controller? Where are you? Control. So not the index I need to show here. I need to say admin login.html is what I am supposed to show. Clear? So now let this run one more time. Right click, run as. So it is still starting. I'm sorry. Okay, right click, run as, run on the cell. Now please understand this console, let this go to the down states. Now here on the top I'm having my output, below I can see my console errors or other kind of stuff. Okay, click on admin login. So here I will say AAA BBB. I click on login. It simply says wrong username password. Correct. Now here I will say RAM and then RAM123 and I'll click on login. Now I will be redirected to a page adminhome.jsp where I get welcome Ram Shankar. Now here also I will try to show after welcome Ram Shankar below left side there will be a menu, add category, add product, add users, view sale report kind of links. On the right side I will be showing you a proper thing. So that's what is going to be admin, using which admin will add categories and others. So here I'll go to admin home.jsp and the below after showcasing this one I will say HR or BR, sorry, so HR I'm showing and below I'm showing a table whose width is equals to 100% and whose voter is equals to 1. As a part of this fellow, I will have a TR and within the TR, I would like to showcase 2 TDs. This is an important element here. So here I will say first TD and I have a second TD. And then in the first TD, please try to understand. This TD I will give width is equals to, okay, width is equals to, let's say some 30% of the page. And then for this TD, I will say height is equals to, let's say another 70% of the page which is available. And then within this TD, I wanted to show some links. A H reference is equals to something and wanted to show BR and similarly another H reference kind of thing. So Control C, Control V, Control V, Control V, and here I will say add category.html. So here I will say add or I will say manage categories, and similarly here I will say add product.jsp, and this also HTML also I'll make as JSP in future. So here I will say manage products, and here I will say add users or other admin users .jsp. He can add any other admin users also to work under it, right? Manage users of the site admins, and here I will say view sale report, the PORT, and I could say sale report, control S, set. And here is I could say which one, I just wanted to say here what is that I'm saying, say hello admin, and this one what I'm showcasing over here I wanted to show in this page in this 70%, in this 70%. So here I'll try to take this out from here, Control X, and then I will put it here in this H1 section in the 70%. So here I would say comma, welcome to Amazon site admin home. This is it. It's so simple. Okay, so this is what I wanted to say. Well, let's see. I will come back here. Sorry, here itself where it is running, and I'll refresh it, and it will become like this. You understand now? So here on the right side, I will, let's say when I say add categories, so it actually takes me to add categories, but I wanted to set the add categories also in the same style so that you will see add categories part coming over here in this place, and you will perform your action. Similarly, whenever admin wants to add products, he click this add products option will come here and he'll perform. So this is what we are going to implement in the next session. But I'll just, I mean, this is using JSP pages. I need to reconfirm with SAR and all whether you wanted to go with JSP or because you know teaching you JSP is again unnecessary time of waste only, because if you are thinking you will go with learning Angular in a quick time and then you wanted to implement it as an Angular, JSP is not going to help you. Some other trainer is coming and teaching you the Angular part probably from Friday or from Saturday. Okay, so here tomorrow, whatever we have developed so far to showcase you how actual and web application entire flow can be done. Yesterday we have seen how we can perform insert or update or delete operations by calling add category kind of stuff. Today I have shown you how even if you wanted to perform actions like login, logout, how do you write using servlets. Today I have introduced you servlet API also, as well as how to use session handling technique. Now in tomorrow's session, what is that we do? We will slightly alter this login controller to perform more than one action. So here it is. It's a single thing you have, right? Single thing you have. Now apart from one path, what if you wanted to write more than one method in this, inside this, and you wanted to handle more than one action? That's what we were going to learn tomorrow. Slowly I will give you introduction to REST API tomorrow. Apart from this one, let's say this fellow login controller will become user controller tomorrow, wherein I will perform add user, edit user, delete user, and login user. 4 kind of operations using the same controller by simply changing the path variants and all. So we will learn that point. That's a thing that you are going to learn tomorrow. A single servlet which can perform more than one action at a time. Followed by that, I will introducing RESTful web services to you. And then day after tomorrow, which is going to be Thursday, we will learn RESTful web services in a thorough manner. And after that, you have learned it in the thorough manner, RESTful web services. What is that? How do we call them? You will find it like, you know, the way we have implementing tomorrow. In the same way, REST service also will look like. The only difference is every method will have its own path. Here we will have a single path, and we will some extra hidden variable to decide what method to be called. But where in REST web service, every method can be identified by a different path. That's the only difference. So we will write that one day after tomorrow. Slowly we will learn it. And on Friday, you actually will implement this user controller as well as category controller and all with different RESTful web services, add category, delete category, update category, and then get category list kind of implementations I will show you. And I'll give you assignments of doing the same kind of REST web services using, REST web services products also. So the site will be ready, something like that. Okay, na? So take care. Done. I will catch you up tomorrow at 8 AM again. See you. And this video again, as usual, will be shared to Raj Kishore sir, and you may get it from him. If he permits me to share, I'll share with you, or I generally will share this with him. Now, one promise is like this one, the application what we have developed, this I will share to you people. I will share it to the Google Drive and then share the link to you. Give me 1 hour time. It's 10 o'clock now. By 11 o'clock, you will get this application in your drive. So you have all that we have implemented so far. So I request you to go ahead and then create everything. I'll try to send you this SQL script of this table also what we have created. This database script also I'll send you. You can simply restore it, or you can open it with a notepad, execute the script elements individually also. You can create tables and then you actually can get the data also. Okay? Good. Thank you guys. I'll catch you tomorrow 8 AM. By 11, you will have these values, this project and SQL shared to you. By probably 11:30 or 12 max, this 2 hours of session will be given to Raj Kishore sir. The link of this will be given to Raj Kishore sir. Okay? Thank you. Bye.